Thorney Weir is a 30-acre gravel pit which is set like right in the heart of the Colne Valley. I've actually only ever fished here once before, believe it or not, and that was probably about 4 or 5 years ago. I'm not too sure what the stock is in here, numbers-wise or size-wise. All I know is the fish are absolutely stunning. It's accessible on a day ticket, which makes it perfect, so anyone can come down here and fish it, and it's 20 quid for 24 hours. So, like I say, this is only the second time I've ever been here, so don't really know what to expect. It's Monday today, so the banks are a little bit quieter than what they would be on a weekend. So we got down here about midday, 1 o'clock. Like anywhere that I've not been before, setting up in the middle of the lake is normally the best option because A, you can see what's going on all around you because you've got a good vantage point, and B, if you don't know the lake that well, there's always carp in the middle of the lake. So got the leading rod out, chucked a few leads about, it was weedy, as expected. A few more chucks sort of to the similar sort of area. Managed to get a drop. Now it isn't very deep, it's only about 5 or 6 foot, which makes finding a clear spot even harder. You sort of have to over chuck and then sort of bounce your lead, if you like, until you find a clearish area. Found somewhere that I wanted to fish, was happy with the area I wanted to fish. The swim that I'm in, you know, it is a fairly good swim. I would have moved if I had to, but as luck would have it, I managed to find a clear spot. So because where I'm fishing is only about 6 foot deep, I clipped all the fishing rods and the spot rod up at the same distance. Fishing 27 rod lengths, which is a fair distance, you know, 108 yards, but I want to try and use the smallest lead possible to be able to feel for a drop. So I've got 3-ounce leads, a slight crosswind, but it's slightly over my shoulder, so I can actually get the distance with a 3-ounce lead. So a few chucks, made sure that all 3 rods went down with a nice drop, then I got onto the spod. When I fished it last time, you know, I put a fair bit of bait out there. That was quite a few years ago now, so I can only go by what I'd done last time and bring it forward to this session. So I went on and probably put, I don't know, 20, 25 big spods out there. Seen a couple of fish since, which is quite promising. You know, it looks good, the time of year is perfect, the weather's really good. The rods are out in position, you know, the bivvy's set up for the night. We'll give it a night here, have a look around the lake, and if we see fish elsewhere, I can always up sticks in the morning and make a move. Oh, the sun's just coming up above the trees. It's about 6:30, 7:15. Nothing through the night, heard a few fish crashing, and to be honest, I set my alarm for 5:30 and was a little bit despondent. Still seeing a few fish showing on the snags on the far side, but you know, it's one of them. You got to sort of sit it out past what would, I suppose, would be bite time. And yeah, just sat there, just put the kettle on, and one rod's ripped off. And because it's shallow, I had a little bit of a disaster catching one of my other rods. So I'm only fishing with a 3 ounce lead, sort of the lightest I can get away with for the distance I'm fishing because of how shallow and weedy it is. And so I've re-chucked all 3 of the rods, fresh hook baits on them, 5 spots back over the top, and no sooner is that one in the net and unhooked, it's ripped off again, and I'm attached to a rather angry Thorney Weir carp. Well, the fish is in the net. Like a bit of a numpty, I managed to catch the other 2 rods. Probably hasn't moved the lead, but in my head I'm only fishing with 3 ounce lead, so even if it's dragged them a little way, it would have dragged them into a bit of silkweed. So what I'm going to do, quickly whip a new rig up for the rod that I've just had the fish on, and what I'll do, bring the other 2 in, fresh bait them, back onto the spot, the wind's off my back so it makes casting nice and easy, and put them back out, a couple more spots over the top, and we're fishing again. Here he is, first one of the trip. Nothing through the night, I was a little bit surprised really. There was a few crashing around, but first light this morning, this one absolutely melted off. I'm going to slip this one back because not long after I landed this one, I had another one, and he's down there now, sat in the net, waiting patiently. Now about that for a cool Thorney Weir carp. This one come about 20-25 minutes after I topped the air up with another 5 spots. The weather today is looking absolutely bang on, so I've got 3 rods back out there, bait over the top, and hopefully there'll be plenty more of these to follow. It's been a couple of hours since my last bite, sort of the middle part of the day now. I've seen a few fish in the snags opposite. You know, the lake itself's got a lot of snags around the margins, islands. I've almost got a bit of an inkling that the fish go into the snags in the day. So I was in the process of sort of breaking a bit of kit down and potentially having a mooch around the other side and just flicking a few rigs out, but completely random, out the blue, the left-hand rod's just absolutely melted off. So, you know, even though my theory that they might be in the snags, you know, maybe there's always fish passing through this middle area, you just never know. The conditions are absolutely bang on. You really couldn't ask for any better conditions than what we got now. Strong southwesterly wind, although it doesn't really look it, but it's blowing over our shoulder. Relatively low pressure, and the sun hasn't managed to break through at all today, so it's kept it really, really dark. So the sort of the light levels as it is now isn't really much different to sort of 6, 7 o'clock this morning when I had them other 2 bites. So hopefully, keeping a little bit of pressure on it. It looks like the lead's ejected, which is what I'm trying to do, and the fish is actually out there on the surface coming in a nice straight line. So I'm going to keep a bit of pressure on the fish, concentrate, and hopefully I can show you another Thorney Weir carp. Right, no messing around, new boom section, fresh pop up, and I'm going to be getting that rod straight back out because where there's one, there'll be more. There you go, another fine Thorney Weir carp. Literally about 5 minutes before this one ripped off, I was half debating on having a mooch over to the other side with a couple of rods and just chucking them around some islands where I've seen a few fish show, but as luck would have it, this fish decided to put stop to that plan. And yeah, good job I didn't crank them in. So the rods are now back out there and entering sort of early afternoon now, and I've got to admit it is looking absolutely prime for another bite or two. Well, it's the end of day 2. I haven't had any more this afternoon. I had a couple of fish first thing this morning, then a bit of a quiet period, was debating whether to move or not, but decided to sit on my hands. Then I unfortunately lost one and had another one about half an hour after that one. So it's all good, 4 bites, 3 fish. The weather's absolutely perfect, it's overcast, light rain, strong southwesterly wind. The rods are back out on the spot, fresh baited them all, 20, 25 spods over the top, feeling really, really confident. So hopefully through the course of the night and in the morning, I'll be showing you a couple more fish. How about that for an absolutely banging Thorney Weir carp? I put quite a bit of bait out last night just before it got dark. I had a bite about 10:30, 11, which turned out to be one about 14, 15 pound. I slipped him straight back, and I must admit the good thing with fishing here at Thorney is that the sky at night is actually really, really light, mainly from the light pollution from London, so I was able to get the rods back out perfectly where I wanted them. Another 7 or 8 spots directly over the top, nothing through the remainder of the night, hour after first light, still hadn't had a bite. Was a little bit sort of concerned, maybe the fish had pushed off. But see a couple of fish crash about 30-40 yards behind it. Sat on my hands, and this was the first one to slip up. Just over 25 pound, absolutely awesome carp. And then the one that I had about 5 minutes after I netted this one is a right nice scaly one. So we'll slip this one back and have a look at the scaly one. Well, it's looking likely that this is probably going to be the last fish of the session, but what an absolutely fantastic session it's been. 6 carp banked, every one of them absolutely banging. But what we're going to do is come back here later on in the autumn, late October time, and you know, hopefully get amongst some of these bigger fish in here. There's a lot of 30-pounders to go out in here, and it would be absolutely epic to catch one of these fish at 30 pounds. So like I say, this will probably be the last fish of the trip, but what an absolutely brilliant trip it's been. Until next time, thank you to Thorney Weir. I'm going to slip this one back and hit the road. The plan was to come back, and here we are a couple of months on. It's now late November. The lake has changed massively since I was last here. All the leaves have fallen off the trees. The water has changed completely. When we was here last time, you could barely test a pop-up in the margin. And now when you walk round, you can see the bottom almost everywhere in the margin. It's really cleared up. To me, that's an indication that sort of the fish have slowed up. They're not as active as what they were before. Like I say, it's late November now. The fishing's probably going to be a little bit of a challenge. I'm in a different swim to where I was last time, but one thing that's sort of stayed the same is I'm going to be targeting the same sort of area. Behind me, sort of on the opposite bank, was where I was fishing before, and I was fishing out into a deep sort of silty gully. And now I've come around to the other side, which is the furthest walk from the car park, and I'm fishing exactly the same piece of water. Now, I've had a look around the margins, in the snaggy areas. The lake is quite snaggy. A lot of the fish live in the margins. I haven't seen anything. Now, to me, that's a good indication that the fish probably are out in the middle. So I say the fishing's probably not going to be as easy. I've spoken to Dave the bailiff before I come down, and he has said that the fishing's been quite slow. But one thing I would say is the angling pressure has massively dropped off, and there hasn't been a lot of anglers. So it is very hard to gauge sort of how well the lake's been fishing. There hasn't been people here pushing them around. But one thing's for certain, I'm in a decent swim. I know it's got good winter form. The rods are on the spot, and I'm more than confident that it's probably going to be a chance or two of a bite. Well, it's been a little bit motionless on the rods out in the open water, sort of the first part of the session. As I was saying before, Thorney is absolutely laced with snags all the way around the margin, and I sort of thought if they wasn't out in the middle, the only place they're really going to be is around the edges. It's a freezing cold wind. It's probably only about 4 or 5 degrees, but the sun is out and it's absolutely beaming down, and I've just had a mooch around, wound the rods and had a mooch around, and in this snag that's behind me, I've probably seen about 30 or 40 carp. Now, that's the only snag that I can really sort of walk out and get on and have a look down, and it's, you know, the first one that I've walked on, I've seen fish. So to me, that probably says that there's a fair few fish, you know, in and around the snags that are all the way around the lake. But I'm going to stick to my guns. I'm not going to move or do anything, you know, make a rash decision now. The day's ticking on, and to be honest with you, by the time you move, try and get a couple of rods out to some snags. You know, the light's fading fast, and it'll probably mean that I'm just going to be rushing things and not doing it right. And as well, I don't really want to go and fish in snags sort of all the way through the hours of darkness. You know, you're fishing up to snags with mono, if you hook a fish, it's just, I feel personally I'm not fishing very safely, so I would rather fish it out where I am tonight, where I'm confident they're going to go into the open water at night to have a little bit of a feed, and then probably in the morning have a mooch around with a couple of rods and just flick them into some snags, because I'm almost convinced that they're so confident being in there that if I just flicked a little single or maybe a little bag across there, that would be enough just to nick a bite. So for now, I'm going to get the rods out, do them perfectly, see how it goes tonight, you know, listen for any signs of fish, but certainly in the morning I'll be up early when the sun rises, and if they're back in them snags, I'll definitely be winding in and having a little mooch around. The sun's just gone behind the trees, 3 rods bang on the spot, literally I couldn't have hand placed them any better. A little bit of bait over the top. Fingers crossed they come out the snags. Now I'm not saying that all the carp that live in Thorney are in the snags, so I'm always hopeful that there's going to be fish out there, but you know, the fish that are in the snags, if they're in there getting sort of the afternoon sun, if they venture out into the middle of the lake, there's 3 rods out there that are waiting, and if nothing happens tonight, then certainly in the morning the rods will be in. I'll see bite time out probably 8-9 o'clock. Go for a mooch round, probably drop a bit of bait in some sort of like snaggy areas, and hopefully can catch a fish like that. But I've got to be honest, I'm pretty confident. You know, last time we came, nothing happened during the daylight hours the first day we got here, so I'm hoping that it sort of repeats itself tonight, and that, yeah, rods are bang on and it's going to happen tonight. Well, nothing happened through the hours of darkness, and to be totally honest, I'm quite shocked. You know, even though it's a lot colder than when I was here before, I just felt that I fished right. I knew I was in a good swim, you know, it's got really good winter form, but you know, for one reason or another, it just didn't happen. The tufties were still diving on me when I woke up this morning, which, you know, is a good indication that probably nothing has actually come over the spot and had a bit of a feed throughout the course of the night. So wound the rods in, went for a little walk, found some fish in some snags. The fish are, you know, they're inaccessible to cast to. They're right in sort of the back of the snags, almost up against the bank, but it's the only signs of carp that I've seen. So rather than just sitting on motionless rods and the tufties diving on me, there's, you know, the days are short. You've not got many hours of daylight. It's raining, it's overcast. It's quite a dull day anyway, so you've not really got many hours of like time you can actually do anything, if you like. So wound the rods in, and I've come for a mooch round. Like I say, where I've seen the fish in the snags is a long walk from where I am, but it's almost off the back of where my swim was. Come round, I've got a rod in position, and I'm not the most sort of confident angler when it comes to sort of not so much snag fishing, but close range. You know, the far bank's probably about 3 or 4 rod lengths, and straight away I'm like, oh, this is, you know, I just don't feel like it's going to work. But it's where I've seen carp, and they're in there. They're obviously like quite happy staying in there, so there's no reason why they wouldn't pick up a single look. But I'm not going to bait up, and probably one of the key things that I've learned or would say when sort of locating fish and finding fish in snags is don't actually put any bait inside the snag. They're comfortable being in there because they know they can't get fish for. And if I'd have chucked any bait in there yesterday, I'd just give them a reason basically not to come out. They're not eating a lot of bait, so I'm hoping that the single that I've got in there, it took a couple of chucks, even though it's only an underarm. It's right underneath the tree. It's daylight. I'm going to be hovering over the rod, literally a tight clutch, bobbing up to the top. If it goes, I'll be on it straight away, and hopefully I can pull something out the bag. But I'm going to certainly give it an hour or 2 in here, see what happens, and possibly move up and down this channel this arm. There's various trees up and down here anyway, so I can always sort of search them out, and hopefully one of them feels sorry for me. Well, the little wander around fishing to the snags didn't pay off, and to be totally honest, I was half beaten as soon as I put the rod in the water. That type of fishing really just isn't me. I don't have the patience for it. You know, even though I knew that there was carp there, obviously because I'd seen them, I just didn't feel, you know, confident all the time. So I give it an hour and it hasn't, you know, nothing come of it. So I'll just quickly come around now, want to get the rods out before it gets dark. And the problem is with this time of year is it literally gets light and then it's almost like it's getting dark and you're setting for the night. You don't really have enough hours in the day. And going on the little walk around fishing for the fish that I saw, yeah, it could have paid off, and if it had paid off, it would have been brilliant, because it would have given me confidence in certainly doing it in like on different venues, or if I ever come back here. But the only thing, like I say, with going around and having a mooch around like that is that the middle part of the day, the latter part of the day in the winter is genuinely the warmer part, and it is when you are most likely to probably get a chance. And obviously not having my rods on the spot then, it's very hard for me to turn around and say, well, I didn't catch last night because the fish aren't here, because by the time I'd messed around yesterday, I didn't really get in for that afternoon period. Again, I've missed it today because I was walking around, you know, trying to maybe catch one out the edge, and it hasn't happened. So potentially I've missed that chance there. So it's hard to determine. So I don't really want to like pack up and move on the fish that I've seen and spend a night fishing where I'm not confident sort of doing what I'm doing. I'd rather just come back to the peg that I originally chose. And like, I know this peg, I know the spot that I'm fishing's a good spot, the rigs and the baits that I'm using. I was using the maggots last night, and I got confidence in maggot rigs. I know they work whatever lake I've taken them to before, but I've got one more night. When I was here last time, it was pop-up rigs. It was yellow pop-ups last time, but this time around I'm going to go for orange. I've caught quite a few fish recently on orange pop-ups, and I've got confidence in them. I'm just going to go exactly the same rigs, orange pop-ups over the bed of bait that I've put out. I'm going to put a couple more spods out maybe, and I'm just going to leave it. I'm just going to go with what I know works, and that's going to be it. And I'm pretty sure, you know, if there's carp out there and they come over this spot, that one of these little rigs is going to be sat there nicely above the siltweed, and hopefully, yeah, there'll be a carp to show. Well, what a difference a couple of months has made. Final morning, I haven't had any fish. Massively, massively different to when I was here in September. In fact, I haven't even seen a fish out in front of me. I've had no indication that there's even anything out there, but I partly sort of blame myself really for the mistake, if you like. I saw fish in the snags, moved to them. I wasn't confident fishing there. Now, the venues I normally fish, they don't have the opportunities, I suppose, what Thorney Weir what it offers. You know, the fish are pressured to the middle of the lake on a lot of the places that I go, and you know, me just fishing the way I fish, I've come straight to the middle of the lake thinking it's going to be the right thing to do again. But this lake, the fishing here are old, they don't always follow the same script that what I've been used to with the fish in the places that I go to, and they haven't gone out in the middle of the lake. That's not to say there's nothing out there, there probably is, but the fish that I've seen have been in the margins and in the snags. Now, that's not really my type of fishing, but the venue that we've come onto, you've got to, I suppose, adapt and fish to where the fish are, and you know, on this occasion they have sort of hung around the edge, and that's just not me. But I am, I suppose, a bit gutted I've not caught nothing, but it has sort of given me a little bit of a boost to say, you know what, broaden your horizon and next time try harder. And as well, I've only fished it 3 times. Once was about 4 or 5 years ago when we filmed the first time, and then this time as well. And the period that I was away from the water, 6 to 8 weeks, is a long time to be away from any lake, and a lake that certainly that I don't know very well. You know, you can speak to people and ask advice and where you think you should be going, and you can sort of do everything in your favour, like going in a peg such as this one that is deemed to be a very good peg. But unless you're here yourself and you're piecing something together, it is very, very hard to just come back down and sort of reignite what I done last time. But you know, I'm not too despondent. It is what it is. You know, we all come fishing. You know, sometimes you catch, sometimes you don't. And on this occasion, I haven't caught, but I'll be going away knowing that the time that we was here before was absolutely brilliant, and I've enjoyed this time. And it would have only taken one bite, but it hasn't happened. So I suppose all that's left for me to do now is to load the gear on the barra, face the treacherous walk back to the van, and head off home.